Good afternoon, everyone. We welcome you to our regular meeting of the Utah Transit Authority's Audit Committee, and appreciate everybody's patience last week as we worked through some technical issues. Since this meeting is being streamed live with no anchor location, I'll ask Jenna Osler if she'll read our electronic board meeting determination.
Thank you, Chair. This is the electronic board meeting determination. Consistent with the Utah Open and Public Meetings Act, as the Chair of the Board of Trustees of the Utah Transit Authority, I hereby make the following written determinations in support of my decision to hold electronic meetings of the UTA Board without a physical anchor location. Due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, conducting board and board committee meetings with an anchor location presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the anchor location. Federal, state, and local health authorities continue to encourage institutions and individuals to limit in-person interactions. This written determination takes effect on April 12, 2021 and is effective until midnight on May 11, 2021 and may be reissued by future written determinations as deemed appropriate. Dated this second day of April 2021, signed Carlton Christensen.
Thank you, Jenna. And next up, item 2 on our agenda, we'll go to our Safety First Minute. With that, we welcome Sheldon Shaw. Good afternoon, Sheldon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, committee members. Today I join with the National Highway Traffic Safety Administrating in recognizing April as Distracted Driving Awareness Month. In the last 2 years of recorded statistics, we saw a 10% increase in the number of fatalities due to distracted driving. In 2019, there were over 3,000 people died due to that. For UTA, what we see is distracted pedestrians too, who walk in front of our trains, unfortunately, and also add in the crosswalks in front of our buses. And so it behooves all of us to not be on social media until you're in a safe place. Thanks for the opportunity, Chair.
Thank you, Sheldon. We'll next move to our consent agenda, which is approval of our February Audit Committee meeting, as well as our Audit Committee charter. I'll entertain a motion unless there's any questions. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion from Jeff, seconded by Karen, to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. We'll next move to our internal audit update. And with that, we welcome our internal audit director, Ron Ellis. Good afternoon, Ron. Let's see, Ron, I think you might be on mute.
I am on mute. Now I am not.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman Christensen. It's a pleasure to be here. Next slide, please. We'll talk about our internal audit plan status. As you can see, in the first part of the year, we've completed our capital projects preliminary assessment. Mr. Mike Hurst is here with us this afternoon, and he will present the recommendations internal audit has for the capital projects process. We will also be discussing the fares revenue follow-up, which involves deployment of security devices, personnel, etc., and therefore will not be discussed in open session. That audit is also complete. We will be discussing the utility costs in June, later on in June, but that's in the reporting stage right now. The report is out for management responses. The payroll follow-up review is in progress. The maintenance of way systems preliminary assessment is in progress. And we have the remaining audits scheduled for the remainder of the year: procurement, bus training and operations, transit-oriented development audit, maintenance of way infrastructure follow-up. Next slide, please. Data access audit data access audit phase, accounts payable follow-up, information technology general controls, fuel costs, preliminary assessment, and the debt process. And as you can see, the schedule is planned for the remainder of the year. I'm pleased to report that at this point, we're able to stay on schedule and start and complete audits on the schedule that we've originally planned out. So that's very helpful. Next slide, please. Well, now, let me stop there before we move on. Are there any questions about the progress of the internal audit plan?
Any questions from the committee? Not seeing anyone.
Okay. And next slide, please. We'll now move on to a quick review of the outstanding issues. We've made good progress with management in closing out some of the issues that have been outstanding for a while. We're making progress, and you can see the chart of the various audits. State of good repair is nearly complete, and will drop off with the completion of an outstanding issue. Data access, there's nothing due, I believe, but once we initiate our audit phase of that, we would expect that some of the issues will move to the green section and be completed. Okay, next slide, please. This is a graphic present, or a table presentation rather, of the graph that I just presented. And it shows you the number of closed issues that we've had per audits that still have outstanding issues, the ones with a future due date and a pending due date. So as you can see, as I discussed, state of good repair, maintenance of way infrastructure, and then that middle red column shows where we have some issues where we'll need to extend the completion dates. Payroll follow-up is in progress right now, so hopefully we can extend that, and then we'll discuss the extension of due dates a little bit later in our presentation.
So Ron, will that also include, the accounts payable piece as well?
The accounts payable piece will be a separate follow-up phase scheduled for later in the year.
Okay.
Pop back to my notes. Accounts payable is scheduled for September of this year, and the payroll is in progress right now. And we thought that it was good to move that up to earlier in the year with the implementation of Kronos late last year, early this year. That should resolve a lot of the outstanding issues because a lot of them were tied to what are now obsolete timekeeping systems and processes.
Okay. So these past due items, you're anticipating sort of resolving themselves when you do these follow-up audits later in the year then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. And what about the Vanpool one?
Vanpool is actually closed now. And as you know, Chairman, with the timing of when we have to format our slides and send them in, things continue to happen after that point, and it just becomes impractical to make last-minute changes. But Vanpool is done. That will be off of here in June, and we will not see those issues again.
Okay. Thanks, Ron.
Next slide, please. So speaking of the due dates, there's a few past due items. I think with data access, we had one item that slipped past the due date. And with payroll, we have several findings related to SOP approvals, which were put on hold to allow Mr. Green, our CFO, the opportunity to review the SOPs. And additional things have come up that needed to be added in the SOPs. Likewise, with payroll, the Kronos implementation was not completed until near the end of 2020, which was the actual due date for the payroll items to be updated. Therefore, to include the Kronos timekeeping system and the SOP, we recommend that we extend those due dates to some extent. Accounts payable, I think we just discussed, and then Vanpool operations. That's out of there. That has been remediated with cooperation between IT and the Vanpool group.
And
Are there any questions?
Do you need any motion to extend those dates, or can you just do that with?
At this point, Chairman, we're not going to make it a consent type thing, so we don't really need a motion. We're just informing the audit committee of what the status is, and really to keep these overdue things on the radar so people can be aware of them, and they're working on them.
Great.
So with that, we'll move forward. Any questions? Other questions? Next slide, please. We'll go to the internal audit report review, and I will turn it over with the chairman's permission to Mr. Mike Hurst, who's our senior internal auditor, and he will present the recommendations related to the capital projects preliminary assessment.
Great.
Mr. Hurst.
Mike.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and chair members. Appreciate you having me here. Let's see, next slide. So here's our capital projects audit, and I want to start off by thanking the people in capital development, particularly Mary DiLoretto, Manjit Ranu, and Dan Hoffer. They were instrumental in getting this all across the goal line. They performed great work, and I appreciate their assistance throughout this. So our purpose with this audit was to understand the controls for managing a capital project from conception through completion. There's a lot within that process, and so we based on risk discussions with capital development, narrowed down the scope of the topics that we would look at, and that's what's shown here on this slide. Governance, estimating budget, and project management became the primary areas of focus. Next slide, please. We found that while individual project managers seek to be diligent and effective, the organization as a whole lacks a standard and unified approach to managing capital projects. This leads to widely varying practices and results from one project to the next. To create greater accountability and a consistent approach, we have the following recommendations that are shown on the slide. So I'll read these recommendations, and then Mary DiLoretto will jump in and share the action plans that management has developed to address these recommendations. The first one, project requests should include detailed budget estimates and project timelines. Number two, management should develop objective criteria to evaluate and prioritize capital projects. Three, management should develop training and tools for project managers to follow. And four, management should institute entity-wide standardized reporting of project budgets in progress. And then if you're on the line, Mary, I'll turn it over to you to comment.
Sure, I'll go through each of these in order. So regarding the project request, including detailed budget estimates and timelines, typically when project managers submit a request for a new project, they do have to have a budget estimate, and they generally look at over the next 5 years as we're putting the 5-year capital plan together. But we know that it needs more work and better accountability. So we're now going to be using the Laserfish process, where a project manager would submit an initial project request with not all of the detailed information, but just estimates of the overall cost and the years it would be completed by. And then if their managers and then the chief over that area approve it, it would go back. Laserfish would send them a notice it's been approved, and that's where they would give the detailed cost estimates and over the 5 years, up to 5-year time period. We know that the more design that's done, the more accurate those cost estimates and timelines can be. So each year as we do our 5-year capital plan, we'll revisit those timelines and estimates and update them as needed. We plan to have the first part of that done by June 1st when we have the project requests coming in from the project managers. And then the second part about aging and reevaluating costs, that will happen annually as we go through the 5-year capital plan. The second item is management should develop objective criteria to evaluate and prioritize capital projects. Right now we do, and if you look at our 5-year capital plan, we always put in there what the criteria are, and they include assuring a safe system, taking care of or replacing what we have, leveraging grants and other partner funds, and contributing to system improvements. So they're in there, but it's not really formal. And so we are putting together a standard operating procedure that'll formalize those. And we want those goals to be, those prioritization categories to be flexible and adjust them as the agency's goals change. But we will have a SOP now, and that I believe we plan to have that done by October 1st, what more formalizes those prioritizations. Number 3, management should develop training and tools for
can
project.
I ask one question?
Yes.
What do you use for the agency goals? Is that the goals that get presented as part of the budget, or what? I just wonder what the source of.
Yeah, we don't really have formalized. The ones that I just read you about assuring a safe system, taking care of what we have, leveraging grants and partner funds, and contributing to system improvements. We used to have more defined board goals and agency goals, and I know we're moving more towards that. So as we formalize those goals more, and even, for the executive director's goals, we want to be able to meet the goals that are being put forward. But the SOP will hopefully define how we consolidate those goals into our prioritization process.
It's helpful. Thank you.
Question? Okay.
It does.
Management should develop training and tools. So we agree there is not a lot of in-house project management training. However, there are a lot of project management training modules on our LMS and Skillsoft website. So we're going to be going through those and see which ones are the most appropriate and applicable to our project managers. And then we're going to decide whether we need an actual training sessions or just have a list of different training that we want each project manager to take. And we are going to be putting an SOP together to explain that. And that target completion date is December 31st. And we will also look at if we need that formalized training. If we do have formalized training, that would not be done by the end of the year, but we would know by that time and we'd start developing a training module for that. The last one is management should institute entity-wide standardized reporting of projects and budgets. For that one, we are right now, I don't know how many of you are familiar with our integrated project control system. We call it IPCS, where we track all of our project capital budgets. We are now looking at, with our new program management consultant that has come on board, reevaluating that and seeing if we should move towards a different system on that. And once we've developed that, decided that, we will look at what type of reporting we want to have on a monthly or quarterly basis for the executive team. So that we plan to have done by December 2021 as well. Do you have any questions? I'm sorry that Dan Hofer, he's our new project control manager over at Capital Projects, Capital Assets and Project Controls, and he is on vacation this week. He probably would answer these questions a lot better than me, but he's not here and he's on a well-deserved vacation right now. But are there any questions that hopefully I can answer?
The one question I had is, does your capital project budget thing, does that interface with JDE or just get reconciled to JDE?
Yep, IPCS. Every night there's a download into the IPCS program.
Okay. Other questions on the board to Mary?
Mary, I did have a question that maybe you could just articulate. How, excuse me, how does this work if another project comes up? Maybe you could kind of highlight how that would impact us if there's a project that comes up that we'd have to amend or otherwise look at this, the projects. Could you kind of say that?
So if we have a project that comes up that is not already included in the capital budget for the year, we would have to come back to the board and to the advisory council to get a new project approved. If we just want to amend a budget and if we already have a sufficient budget authority to do that, we can amend between existing projects. We would come to you then for information to let you know about those changes.
Thank you.
Other questions for Mary? Thanks, Mary.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, are there any questions about this audit that I can help you understand?
No. The only thing I would say is thanks to staff. I think this was one of those areas where they saw a need and reached out, and we added it to the audit plan. And so, you know, I appreciate the proactive nature of it, and certainly in the efforts to improve it. So thank you.
It was a great project, and again, I want to thank the capital development staff for their collaboration.
Let's see, Ron.
Thank you, Mike. Well, I can tell that actually concludes the report that we're presenting in this session here. I can see the next slide takes us to other business, so I don't have anything further at this juncture. Unless there's questions about the overall audit process or what we did. I would like to add, though, that this capital projects audit or assessment, preliminary assessment, this was a great model, and this is the model that we want to have, where we're collaborating and we're coming up with and agreeing with management on these are the areas where we really can have opportunities to improve things without getting people distracted in a lot of minutia of what color ink to sign the form with and that type of thing. Though this was a very high quality audit, and I thank Mike and I thank the capital projects group for their cooperation. The entire group was great. Everybody had a piece of it, and it was educational for us as well to learn the level of effort that has to go into expanding a service line or developing a TOD project or whatever the project may be. There's a great deal of effort that goes into it, and we're very appreciative. And this is the model that we would like to follow for our audit projects in the future.
Great.
This is Carolyn Godar. Can I just make a comment as well?
Yeah, please, Carolyn.
You know, I appreciate Ron and his staff. You know, one of the things right now is we're embarking on, you know, broadening our capital program again. And when I came here, I wanted to have a good sense of, you know, areas that we could work on. So I appreciate Ron and his team doing that. And our team was really open and trying to have things come out that could help us. Also, it's things that we can put in place. And actually, some of these preliminary recommendations are already being put in place as we bring on the program management services consultant. So we'll be able to build, a strong budget estimation team, time schedules, and continue to be able to monitor that. The project control systems they bring in will help. We've had some, restructuring our area so that we're going to start to develop some of those. We have training, but maybe a more formalized, at least access to that training as we have. So I appreciate that. It's a good way to just get us all aligned on the same page and move forward. So I appreciate the work that's been done for Mary's team at the time, Eddie's team as well, and Ron's.
Thanks, Carolyn, and thanks for bringing your years of expertise to this subject as well. So that's great. Other questions, though, from the committee? Okay, not seeing any. Ron?
I think we can go on to the next slide, Mr. Chairman.
Well, if doing so, that brings our other business, which for our audit committee is our next meeting, which is on Monday, June the 21st at 3 o'clock. And then we do have a closed session item to discuss the outcome of another evaluation. This closed session is a discussion regarding deployment of security personnel devices or systems is the purpose of the closed session. And with that, I would entertain a motion go into closed session.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion from Karen, seconded by Beth, to go into closed session. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? For the members of the committee and those involved in the closed session, we'll reconvene through another platform, and you can exit out of here and go into that platform. I think it's a Zoom one for that closed session. Thanks. Okay.
So go ahead. Thanks.
All right. Well, we've returned from our the closed portion of our meeting today, and with that, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
Make a motion that we adjourn our meeting for the day.
I will second.
I have a motion from Karen, seconded by Clint, to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thanks, everybody, and thanks, staff, for